Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ashram Talks, where we continue our study of the Bhagavad Gita. My name is Ambika, and I'm joining you today from Toronto, Canada. In today's session, we're exploring one of the 5 main topics discussed in the Bhagavad Gita, the jiva, or the spirit soul. If it's your first time joining us in this series, we've been hearing from practitioners from all over the world about how we can apply these ancient teachings from the Bhagavad Gita to our own lives. So to guide our study today, we have Krsnacandra Dasa joining us from Long Island. Welcome back, Krsnacandra, and it's a pleasure to have you.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Ambika. I'm very happy to be here. It's always a privilege to be on this channel and to speak about transcendental topics.
We always love having you.
Thank you so much. I'll do my best. So I look forward to reciting the Sanskrit and English translation of the verses that we will be reviewing tonight. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 17, and we will be doing 18 and 19 as well. Avinashi tu tadviti yena sarvamidatatam vinasham avyaya syasya na kaschit kartum arhati. Know that which pervades the entire body is indestructible. No one is able to destroy the imperishable soul. Verse 18. Antavanta imedeha nityasyokta sharirana anashino prameyasya tasmad yudyasva bharata. Only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is subject to destruction. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata. Verse 19. Ya enam veti hantaram yashchaina mantyate hatam ubho tauna vijantnito nayam hantina hanyate. He who thinks that the living entity is the slayer, or that he is slain, does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not, nor is slain. So without further ado, I shall recite prayers, which we call Mangalacharn. This will be in Sanskrit. Om Jnana Timidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Dehivam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Rata Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. You are not this body. This is a simple sentence which packs a lot of insight into the meaning of life. Although the Western world is largely influenced by the Abrahamic faiths, the Dharmic faiths, including Sanatan Dharma, otherwise known as Hinduism, have begun to introduce the conception of the indestructible soul. The Holy Bible refers to God breathing life into Adam's body and harvesting the rib of Adam to create Eve. This is when we identify with the body according to personalities. The death of a loved one among those believing in Abrahamic faiths is marked in the burial of the body. Some faiths require burial to be within a day. Christianity, in particular, believes in the resurrection of the body, especially to those who believe in the sovereignty of Jesus. So it's the body is integral to that resurrection, so the continuation of life beyond death in that tradition. Even if we of the Western world were not raised in a religious family, we were essentially raised in these concepts. But the Bhagavad Gita teaches us a distinctively different narrative, and it makes a lucid distinction between the soul and the body. It is the soul that is eternal, regardless of the conduct of that soul. The body is classically likened to garments of clothing. After some time of wear and tear, we end up discarding particular articles of clothing and get new clothes. We are not our clothing, but our clothing may help identify us among others. For example, we may dress like a wealthy person, or we may dress primarily according to our profession, and that helps people understand who that person is. Similarly, it's our conduct in lives past and present that will determine our appearance in subsequent lives. But ultimately, this is all temporary. Through our actions in the human life, we can alter the trajectory of our existence. Our path, we have sovereignty over that, ultimately. We can decide who we are going to be in this life and even who we're going to be in our next life. This knowledge ultimately helps Arjuna to understand the externality of the soul and the temporary nature of his familial connections. His relatives, the Kauravas, had committed abominable acts against him and his family, and yet Arjuna continued to be attached, not wanting to hurt them in combat, although it was his duty as a kshatriya, a warrior, and he was one of the most powerful warriors of all time. And he was to fight members of his own family during the Battle of Kurukshetra. If you haven't yet read the Mahabharata, I highly recommend it. I believe there's also some resources on YouTube, but ultimately it's best to read the book. And they also have an audiobook version. It's to help. It's really helpful when studying the Bhagavad Gita to bring everything in perfect context. Knowing the eternal nature of the soul helped Arjuna to understand that nobody ever truly dies. It is simply the end of their role during this current lifetime. It also helped to soften the attachment he had to his relatives, the Kauravas, whom were responsible for so much pain and suffering endured by Arjuna and his family. The Svetasvatara Upanishad helps explain the nature of the soul. When the upper point of a hair is divided into 100 parts, and again, each of those parts is further divided into 100 parts. Each such part is the measurement of the dimension of the spirit soul. So, my math is correct. That's approximately, it's 1/10,000th of a hair. It's inconceivable. It's just absolutely beguiling, mystifying. But I marvel at two attributes here. The fact that the soul is so small and and it's attributed a mass. It's according from what I just read from the Upanishad, and yet it's indestructible. And that something so small contains so much. Because actually, I shouldn't jump ahead, but the next verse, 220, it will explain that there's no beginning or end. We have no beginning or end. So just imagine we've always been eternal beings. This is not something that simply started at our birth. But I liken the small, indestructible nature of the soul to the fact that while it's simple and straightforward to swat a housefly, a much smaller flea is much more difficult to kill, even if one is captured. And if anyone's had pets like dogs or cats, it's you will know this because, of course, it's one of the liabilities of pet ownership. When you have one can get fleas, and then as the caretaker to that pet, it's anyway. But anyway, it's not a perfect analogy since the soul is completely indestructible. From nature to technology to art, we can glimpse hints of the eternal soul. The infinitesimal size of the soul can be especially mind boggling, considering the fact that it not only contains our identity, but the sum total of our experiences in previous lives. Consider how computer technology has evolved over the decades. When I was 7 years old, the year was 1985. Home computers had like 10 to 20 megabytes of hard disk space. Nowadays, this year, you can purchase a notebook computer, which is smaller than the desktop computers of the past. You can get an 8 terabyte hard drive. So, um, what is the difference here? Like, I did the math, and it's 420,000 times more storage capacity that we enjoy today versus what we had 40 years ago. So science found a way to make hard drives not only smaller, but with more space, far more space. And the innovation continues to push the envelope. They keep coming out with new things every year. But just think that the Supreme Lord, who's the creator of innumerable universes, not just this universe, but innumerable universes, he's far more capable than even our most brilliant scientists. So we have the soul, and the soul is us. We've lived forever, both in the past, we'll live forever in the future. We will not die. We will keep going. Our bodies will die, but we will endure. We will just take a new identity. And There's no scientist or engineer who has created a machine who can transfer the self from one body to another. We can transplant hearts, kidneys, even attempt artificial intelligence, but the spark of life, the Atma, remains out of human reach. This is why Krishna explains in verse 217 that the soul pervades the entire body, but it cannot be destroyed by any material means. And this is a great relief. Our true self is beyond harm, beyond decay, beyond even death itself. So, regardless of what we face in this life, we could be subject to dangerous natural disasters or the most horrible tyrants, but none of them can touch our soul. Our soul is completely safe. And as such, we are completely safe ultimately. It's just since we are in the material world, we're subject to, pain and suffering, which is ultimately temporary. And William Shakespeare once said, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women are merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts." We've seen countless movies and television shows where a character dies, and within a year, we'll see that same actor portraying a new character in a different movie or television show. And we're never bewildered by this. Considering our identity as an eternal spiritual soul, we can never be killed. We don't remember our previous lives. And if we did, imagine all the painful emotional trauma from countless lives we would carry. There was a television detective named Adrian Monk, and he once said about his photographic memory, "It's a gift and a curse." So our forgetfulness of previous lives, it's indeed a blessing. Krishna also tells us in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 19 that anyone who thinks the soul can kill or be killed is an illusion. This reminds us not only of Arjuna's hesitation on the battlefield, but of our own daily misconceptions. We may think, "I'm hurt, I'm finished, my life is ruined." How many of us have reached a dark night of the soul where we truly felt all was lost, that it could never change? We would always be in this dark cloud. But Krishna reassures us the soul is untouched. Pain and loss may affect the body or the mind, but the real I remains intact. This knowledge can be very grounding, especially when we go through grief or hardship. For example, when a loved one passes away, we naturally feel sorrow. But remembering Krishna's words helps us keep perspective. Their journey is continuing, just in another body. And when we ourselves face old age or illness, instead of despair, we can use that time to prepare our consciousness for the eternal destination, our relationship with Krishna. In this way, these verses, they're not abstract philosophy, but a guide for living with courage and clarity. Given that we just uncovered the eternal nature of the soul, what is the best use of our time? Many who understand reincarnation may engage in various arts of past life regression to gain knowledge of our past selves, but I believe it's best to focus on the here and now and to begin to cultivate eternal relationships. Excuse me, please. And relationships among one another in the material world, they end in one of two ways, either through betrayal or death. And in Arjuna's case, they ended in both ways. First, Arjuna and his family were betrayed by the Kauravas. And then their relationship was formally concluded in death once Arjuna finally executed his duty as a righteous Kshatriya and helped defeat all the villainous Kshatriyas on the Kaurava's side. This is what takes place after the conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. Then we return to the Mahabharata, and that's when the battle begins. And virtually everyone on that battlefield dies. As I believe the only survivors are the Pandavas and Ashvatam, and that's it. Many, many, many fighters, combatants, they died on that battlefield, and this is what overwhelmed Arjuna. We saw this in Bhagavad Gita chapter 1, verses 27 through 30 especially. I did a talk about that. But it's through this process of the Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna ultimately, he actually came to the realization that he had to execute his duty. It was his birthright as a Kshatriya to fight in the Mahabharata, in the Battle of Kurukshetra, and to also have Krishna as his charioteer, the supreme personality of Godhead, the Lord of all of existence, was Arjuna's charioteer, acting as the servant. And actually, that, as I will say, or as I've said, this is the only relationship that will never fail. It is our relationship with Krishna, because even if we are not betrayed, all our relationships in life will inevitably end with the death of oneself or their beloved. So, if we are fortunate enough to take birth as human beings again, we're going to have a set of new parents and extended family. If we marry, we'll have a new spouse. But there's one relationship that never ends. That's our relationship with Krishna. And this is why our Guru Varg often emphasized that spiritual life is about reestablishing our eternal relationship with the Lord. Unlike material bonds, which dissolve with the body, our bond with Krishna continues forever. And by recognizing the eternality of the soul, we can treat others not just as temporary bodies, but as fellow souls on their journey back to Him. Our relationship with the Supreme Lord Krishna is eternal. By cultivating our relationship with Him, we will become detached to this material world of temporary splendor. And we're going to find ultimate fulfillment with Krishna in the spiritual sky. And let me leave you with the story of Jai and Vijay, who resided in Vaikuntha. They were the gatekeepers of Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means no anxiety, the spiritual world that is beyond this temporary material world of suffering mixed with temporary joy. And there was the four Kumars attempted to enter Vaikuntha. The four Kumars were great sages, but they looked like children. And Jai and Vijay denied them entry into Vaikuntha because they looked like children. But the four Kumars, they were actually great sages, and they were not to be trifled with. And they were upset, and they cursed Jai and Vijay to go to the material world. And Jai and Vijay were upset with this curse. They went to Vishnu, Krishna's expansion, looking for aid to remove that curse. And Vishnu would not remove it, but he gave the duo two choices: either to take 7 births as devotees or 3 births as enemies of Krishna. In either case, they would return to Vaikuntha after their sentence. Jai and Vijay chose to be enemies of Krishna for 2 reasons. First, it was to minimize the time they would spend in the material world. Because, of course, taking 3 births is much better than taking 7. Second, because they understood that even as villains, they knew they were not equal to their bodies. They knew they could not hurt anyone since souls are indestructible. They especially could not hurt the Supreme Lord Krishna. This actually gave Krishna great pleasure because, as we know, many great stories or leelas benefit from compelling villains. And Krishna loves beautiful leelas. The scriptures are filled with them. You can read Krishna book, which is part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Ramayana, because actually Jai and Vijay, I think one of them was Ravana. I forgot who the other one was. Please forgive me. But actually, they played 3 different roles. Each of them played 3 different roles, and they were the greatest villains because they were in Krishna's Leela. And that gave Krishna great pleasure. And if that thought bewilders you, think about when a great actor plays a villain in a movie or television show, how interesting and compelling that story becomes. But ideally, we should not desire to be Krishna's enemies. But by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, it brings us to our first step into a greater world. There are few pleasures in this world greater than serving those we love and care for the most. By knowing Krishna and cultivating a desire to serve him, we also cultivate our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one which, like our eternal soul, can never be severed or.
Thank you so much for another wonderful class, Krsnacandra Dasa.
Thank you so much. Really, thank you, Ambika. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, there were some reflections that I was having throughout the class, and one of them was just about this balance between, the physical body that we're in. This is, we have these
Yeah.
senses, and I'm walking around, and
Yep.
I'm living, and I'm having bad days, and all these things are happening. But
Yeah.
then on the other side, or at the same time rather,
Mhm.
we're spiritual beings within this experience.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you could share briefly, maybe just a little bit about what you found to be helpful in terms of balancing those 2 aspects, and kind of holding them at the same time in a way where, you got your feet on the ground and eyes to the sky kind of thing, as they say.
Right.
But
That's a very good point, and that's very, very important. We need to have that balance. And I just wanted to share, like, there's one verse. It's chapter 2, text 14, which we covered not too long ago, I'm sure. O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress, and their disappearance in due course, are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So, I mean, when we're given this knowledge, I mean, before we're given this knowledge, we're completely wrapped up. We have no idea what we're doing. We identify with the body. I mean, I'll get a little controversial here, and I'll say that the Western religions encourage us to identify with the body pretty much. So when we're given this knowledge, it's not like, I guess some of us might have seen the movie The Matrix, like you get the red pill, and then, oh my god, it's like everything, you get this full-blown realization, and you're a master of kung fu all of a sudden. It doesn't work that way. You have to, it's a slow process. And I think if we try to go really fast and, like, let's say, become a monk or something. I think when we move too fast, it becomes a bit dangerous. It becomes a slippery slope. We have to take
Mm,
things in stride. We have to um, put ourselves gradually, like we do our sadhana, we do chanting, and then we'll try to do service, spiritual service to and through these activities we gradually become attached. I think it's kind of like gaining the higher taste. It's a long process. It's associating with higher class devotees, associating with sadhus. These, it's a process that takes years and decades. I mean, I think some people do take to it fast, and if they do, it may be a rare case where they had sukriti or punya from their previous lives, and they were just waiting for that trigger to bring them. But most of us don't really have that, and that's okay. That's perfectly fine, because actually Prabhupada, when he came here, he was very, like, patient with everyone. He didn't want us to,
mm,
like, just all of a sudden be exactly like him. But
mm,
we have to fill ourselves with knowledge and practice. It's a practice. We have to continue practicing. So
mm,
that's
mm,
we have to be patient. We have to be patient with ourselves, ultimately.
mm.
Hmm.
I think that's really great advice. And I think, especially as, folks, maybe it's the first time they're kind of, being introduced even to the Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah,
maybe hearing this series. And,
yeah,
um, there's a lot of excitement that can come from
yes,
learning all of these things, and
yeah,
hearing that it's a slow process, and to have
yeah.
patience and determination
Right.
is I think very helpful to hear. So,
Good. Yeah. I mean, we have to stay grounded. We have to love our families, and we just continue reading, continue chanting, and it's naturally will become more, and it will be more graceful ultimately. Really.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Also wanted to say thank you to some folks who have joined us today. So, Colleen, thank you so much for joining. Um, I know Colleen joins quite a few of our classes, so thank you so much. As well as Daniel. Daniel dropped by as well. Thank you, Daniel, for joining us today. And if it's the first time that you're joining us, we are here every Monday and Monday evening and Thursday morning, depending on where you are in the world. But you can, of course, subscribe to the channel to get more of these kinds of talks sent over to you, or you can also hit the like button if you just like the content and would like to hear more of this as well. And thank you again, Krsnacandra Dasa,
Thank
and
you. And I
thank you,
want to. I'm sorry. I want to thank you and all the viewers. Thank you for listening, and really just appreciate everyone.
thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, like I said, thank you so much. Got cut off there. Like I said, thank you so much to everyone for joining us. And we will be back on Thursday for another episode of Ashram Talks. And if you have any questions, please feel free to comment them. Just you can write a comment either on YouTube, or you can also connect with us on Instagram at Ashram Talks ENG. We're very, very happy to connect with folks, and our speakers are as well. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.